and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 360th film, the 2021 Indonesian drama called Tersanjung the Movie. It's directed by Pandu Adjisurya, Hanung, Bramantyo, and Jihat Hisyam, starring Clara Bernadeth, Giorgino Abraham, and Kevin Ardilova. I'm Jesse and I am your host. Thanks for joining me today for this Netflix original film from Indonesia. If you haven't seen this film and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on because we will spoil it as we go. So we do start the show with the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film's all about. So this film, simply for me, it's a complicated love triangle, soap opera style. This is like watching a soap opera in a film. This is what this one's like. So we'll talk a little bit more as we go. So the translations for this film. So Tersanjung in Indonesian means flattered. So flattered by someone. So that's a nice little translation. In Portuguese, this film is called Finding Love. And in Turkish, it's called Love Triangle. So all plays on things that we've sort of already mentioned anyway. This movie is adapted from a Indonesian legendary television series of the same name, which in itself is a soap opera. The show ran for 7 years, from 1998 to 2005, and is Indonesia's longest running soap opera. The TV show does actually make a cameo in the film as well. It plays on the TV in one of the scenes where some of the characters are sitting around eating noodles. This is a bit of a cultural reference, I guess. Apparently in Indonesia, Indonesians, and this is a part of it, it's become a part of like their common language, but they often refer to the show to joke about something that's been prolonged and complicated. So apparently people say, why is this not over yet, in reference to anything? And they say, are we in Tersanjung? So a bit of a part of the popular vernacular. In an interview with the Jakarta Post, one of the movie's directors, Hanung Bramantyo, said the idea of making Tersanjung the movie came from the president of Multivision Plus, Ram Punjabi. Initially, there were other movies planned between Hanung's production company, Deper Film Indonesia, and Multivision Plus, but they were all scrapped because of Multivision's lack of faith in those projects. While the director was initially reluctant to make this movie, Hanung said he did try to add a little bit of women's empowerment into it, even though his position was limited during the production. Here in the movie, he said, I slipped in some moments where Yura tried to be resilient, independent, and refused to depend on other people. In the TV show, the same character, who's called Inda, was not like that, he said. Hanung also said that in his initial research, and this is very interesting, he found that only 10% of respondents in the research said that they would watch this movie. With that in mind, Hanung said it was better to follow the formula of the Tersanjung TV show to ensure that at least a small number of people would watch the film. He said, this is why I'm happy this movie has not been playing in theatres. The film is indeed to be enjoyed on streaming services, he said, adding that he was done and would not be involved in any sequels to Tersanjung the Movie. Wow, crazy, eh? You do some market research and the market tells you 10% of people would be interested in watching this film, and then happy that it's on Netflix because at least some people will watch it. Wild, 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 wild. This did release on Netflix in Indonesia on the 19th of March 2021 before hitting Netflix worldwide on the 1st of April 2021. This had one win and one nomination at the Festival Film Bandung Awards. Kevin Ardilova was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and the film won for Best Art Direction as well. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? So, on Rotten Tomatoes, there are only 2 reviews from critics, so no consensus. One of these reviews is fresh. The other one is rotten. There's nothing there from audiences on Rotten Tomatoes. So not many people have logged this film, as we see on IMDb as well. It only has 250 ratings, sits at a 5.9 out of 10, so that's okay. On Letterboxd, it sits at a 3.3 out of 5, which is also very good, but only 792 ratings and has only been logged by 986 people, and there is nothing on Metacritic. So I would say this is one of those films where we probably have the least amount of data on what people are thinking about the film. What are my thoughts though? Do my thoughts count? Hopefully people care what I'm going to say. For me, my early thoughts on this film, I guess this is an example of why I keep persisting with this podcast. I think this is the type of international film that I would never have seen in my wildest dreams. And most people would probably say this is utter garbage. But I was in on every twist and turn, and I was hooked. It was like watching a whole season of a TV show and a little film, like the drama. I don't know. I just thought it was good. I really enjoyed it. And that's probably really weird for people listening for me to enjoy this, but I did. So let's talk about the characters in this film. So Yura is our main character. She is at the start of the film, she provides the voiceover of this film as well. And at the start of the film, she's talking about love and how her love started with an arranged marriage. And we set up that she's set up with this heavy hitter, I guess, in the music industry and the underworld. And this is almost a match made in heaven for her father, because he's an aging musician and he's offered an opportunity to record some new music if his daughter Yura weds him, and her stepmother too, because she's in debt to this guy's family. Unfortunately, he tries to assault her and then she's almost disowned by her family and has to live in a student share house with her friends. And her friends are everything to her in this film too. And you know, the one thing leads to another. She's got to drop out of school to try and make money to support her ill father, her sister through her education, and then also that struggle that she's having of not having her mum around. That's a big thing in her life, especially this symbol of this bracelet that we see in this film as well. I mentioned her friends. So Yura's friends, Ian and Oka, that they're alongside her for the ride. She calls them to support her. We see them straight away when she's meeting this arranged family. They're pretending to be florists, dropping flowers off to her there. So they're at the gate there to support her. So Ian, one of the best friends, he'd do anything for her, as well as helping out the night that she's attacked too. He's got a multiple variety of names that's used throughout this film. So Ian does come from a wealthy family, and he's able to help Yura financially. And with the other friend, Oka, who we'll talk about in a second, they start up this noodle food truck business, which brings some happiness and some money into the situation. Oka, on the other hand, he's just a down-and-out good guy. His parents are the ones that run this boarding house that Yura stays at. His mum is American, I think, so that's an interesting... So they don't really go on about that much. He experiments. He wants to experiment with food. He experiments with instant noodles. And he wants to be a chef, even though everyone likes his parents cooking better than his. The other side people, we've got Jerry, who's Yura's dad. He's that aging musician I mentioned about before. He's going to do anything to get his sales back up and going, but he does have a stroke, and that obviously, this is a soap opera, yeah. So lots and lots of stuff happens. The same with Inda, who is the stepmother of Yura. So Jerry's new wife and the mother of Yura's half sister Nisa. So Inda, she starts off as that evil stepmother. And she probably has the biggest character progression across the whole film, and she changes and she improves herself. And then Nisa is Yura's stepsister, who's almost there as a problem that Yura needs to support throughout this film. So I did say before, there are 3 directors for this film. The main one is Hanung Bramantyo, best known, 51 credits, a lot of Indonesian stuff. The other 2, this is really their first credit and foray into filmmaking. Time to talk about some scenes. What are some scenes that I enjoyed? What are some ones that didn't work? Let's start Jerry at the bar, the dad singing at the bar. I really liked his vocals. There's a bit of humor showing, how he's past it. There's at this bar, this group of young people get up and go because they said the music was lame. Yes, he's an aging star. That was really, really in your face, but I liked his song. I also liked it when Yura sings her song to Jerry or her dad at the food truck stall after he's had his stroke. I thought that was really sweet. Yura goes to Ian's family home. This is later in the film. She goes to the home to be ignored and shut out by Grace, who's the maid there, pretending she'd never met her before. Very heartbreaking because she's pregnant, she's down and out. But then it's followed up with some pure comedy of Yura in a car crying. This sad song plays. We get this montage of Oka looking out for her. He's cooking eggs the right way for her because she's pregnant. And then there is this high angle shot of her lying in a car park, just in her own vomit. I don't know why they did that, but it was hilarious. Yura, she cuts her wrists at one stage and ends up in hospital. I didn't see that coming. That was a bit of a shock. And then the reveal, and it's like they show some really heartbreaking things and then follow it up with comedy because Oka and his mum are there when she's in hospital and reveal that she's pregnant, and Oka's mum thinks that her son's the dad, and that was quite funny. Inda, the stepmom, she sits down with Yura and asks for forgiveness. That was a really nice moment. And then we see that progression of Inda, and she pushes Yura towards Oka, saying, he'd be the perfect husband. And then when she goes into labor, making him the only person allowed in the room because Ian's gone. I just thought that was a really nice moment too. And I did like the naming of the child. Oka was given the opportunity to name the child, and he named it after Yura's mum, which was kind of sweet. What didn't I like in this film? I think there's at the start, Yura's at the cemetery at her mother's grave, and her dad Jerry comes over, and this is the night after she's been attacked, and he asks about the night, and she tells him, and he breaks down, saying this shouldn't have happened, and he feels helpless, and he's already hit rock bottom. Like, come on, this isn't about you, mate. Your daughter's just been attacked. Like, I just thought that was a bit poor, but obviously this is an international film and is probably looking at the perspective of culture in Indonesia as well. The only other thing, Ian, when he proposes to Yura, he gets down on his knee, he makes this ring from a tuft of grass. That was just a bit laughable. Anyway, what's this film trying to say? What are some themes? What are some ideas? Political dissent plays in the background of this film the whole time. Like there's about land rights of indigenous peoples, nepotism, unemployment. The film is set in 1998, around the same time as what I looked up, the downfall of Suharto and the monetary crisis in Indonesia. And it's the same year that the television series Tersanjung came out too. So that plays out in the background. Through the characters, we see class divide, those that have, those that don't. What is fairness? Do you just have to keep going with acceptance and accepting where you're at? Ian's family made that lady Grace and his mother, they live in that upper class. They only speak, you're only allowed to speak to them if you're spoken to. And that idea of, in that type of family, you can only choose a romantic couple based on your background. So those different class divides. Love plays a big part in this film. Like, what does love mean? I think this is 2 weeks in a row. Marriages that are almost arranged. You got to think about romance isn't dead. Don't lose hope and don't give up. And sacrifices, they're needed at times too. Family plays a big part with that idea of sacrifice too, and the sacrifices that people will make for their blood. And the difficulties too of step parents and bringing those families together, and the role that a step parent can play. Enjoying what you have in the moment. I think we hear this in the voiceover from Yura throughout the film. Let her enjoy this moment. Let her enjoy something that's good in her life too. What did I take away from this film? I haven't mentioned this yet, and I've held off, but the end of this film, I was like, wow, what the hell? So I haven't really spoken much about it. So Yura ends up with Ian, gets pregnant from Ian. Ian's taken away to America to support his brother. She's pregnant. She can't get onto him. He doesn't come back. That's when Oka steps in, looks after her, helps her with the baby. That's the gist of the story. But the final shot of the film, Ian comes back to see his child in this pusher or this pram. He's covered in disguise. It's at the wedding of Oka and Yura, and his face is all mangled. And he drops the bracelet with the child that I mentioned before as well. Like, what happened to him? What's going to happen? Like, I need a sequel. Like, I was so disappointed that there's not a sequel that I could jump into straight away. It was like one of those cliffhangers from a soap opera that usually you could wait the weekend to find out. But this is like a couple of years and there's no resolution. I just thought that was wild and really, really, I don't know, I was surprised by that ending. Let's talk about IMDb. Did we jump on to check anyone out in this film? For me, I mentioned this, I think, when I introduced this episode at the end of the last one, where the name Kevin Ardilova rang a bell, one of the cast members. So I looked him up, and the only Indonesian films that I've watched have been ones for this podcast, and he was actually in a film we did a while ago called Crazy Awesome Teachers. So we've covered that on the show. He was in that. I remember him. Listen to that podcast if you can, watch that film, another Indonesian film that if you're interested in checking out a bit more about their culture, you'll find that there. All right, some questions, some pondering, some ideas about this film. So Ian, I didn't really speak about Ian much at all, but Ian pays off, he's obviously rich, he pays off all of Yura's family debts, and then she says to him, this is just a loan, I'm going to pay it all back. It wasn't resolved, but I'm guessing because he nicked off on her while she was pregnant, she's just not going to pay him back. I'm guessing that's where that is. One of the questions I saw online about this film was whether this adaptation existed in the same universe as the series. I'm intrigued. I obviously don't know the original series, so if anyone knows or can give some evidence as to why, please do let us know. I know that this film is set in 1998, but how cool were magazines? I was just impressed. We had, the crew that had created this noodle van. They were interviewed, put in the magazine. We see Yura's younger sister really interested in magazines. Back in the day, there was nothing better than having a physical, glossy, covered print thing in my hand. Like, for film, there was the Empire magazine. I think it still runs in the UK, but in Australia, we had the Empire magazine. And myself, Disney Adventures, I know that there was a publication of that in America, but in Australia, that was a monthly thing for me to have and look at all the new films that were coming out and all the new Disney things. I thought that was really cool. And I like seeing magazines in this film as well. Another sort of idea. The head boss lady of the gangster family who they owe money to. The family owe money to. She comes back and she says the debt's not paid because Yura robbed and left a scar on her son Bobby. We saw that she smashed a bottle on his head, but what did she steal? I was a little bit confused. I'm interested. What did she steal from them that was so bad? It's a little bit of a left unanswered question. Ian, I've been talking about Ian throughout this film. In the film, he's referred to as Christian when he's with his family, as Tian, as Ian. Just stick with the one name throughout the film. I understand maybe if with his family, he's got a different name to everyone else, but just the cultural difference, I think it took too much to work out exactly why and how he was being referred to as different things throughout. There was a line in this film that that they're talking about setting up this noodle van to sell noodles, and they said Indonesians will still love noodles in 10 years because they're trying to rush, or Eura's trying to rush to make some money. I was like, yeah, that's true. I think Indonesians will still love instant noodles. And I still love, how good are instant noodles, especially the Indonesian noodles, and they're called Indomie mee goreng. They are amazing. They come like with a couple of different little sachets. Such a good instant noodle if you can find them at the shops. The last thing, what happened to Ian in America? Obviously, I mentioned before, the thing that sort of got me was that he rocks up at the end, his face all smashed in, barely recognizable. What happened to him in America that he got beat so bad? Or was he in Jakarta? We know that in Jakarta there were riots and things happening. Was he in Jakarta the whole time and didn't actually go to America and something else was happening there? I'm so intrigued. I really, really, really want a sequel, but I'm ready to wrap this one up. We give the film a rating out of 5 on this show. Like, for me, this watching this as just a film, it brought back memories of enjoying TV shows like Dallas and other trashy soap operas. I was all in on this, even if it was super melodramatic, over the top, had some really lame moments. I think for 2 hours I was just watching as each sort of thing happened. Bring on a sequel. I want them to make a sequel. Hurry up and make one. I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. Super high for me, I know, but I enjoyed this. We're on socials. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have X, formerly known as Twitter. The question I wanted to put on socials for this episode is the idea of Yura, and is Yura defined by the men in her life? Is every challenge she has in life because of what her father's done, because of what Ian's done, because of what Okka's done, because of all of these men in her life? Is she defined by that, or is she an individual person? I think that's a really 50-50 ball line sort of thing. It's interesting. It's obviously an international film, different culture, different perspective. I like that idea. Have a think about it. Let me know what you think. We are back next week. We do have another episode next week. Next week, it's a drama from 2020. So I think it was first released in 2020, but didn't have a full release until 2021 on Netflix. And this drama is called Concrete Cowboy. It's directed by Ricky Staub and stars Idris Elba, Caleb McLaughlin, Jarrell Jerome, Byron Bowers, Lorraine Toussaint, and Clifford the Method Man Smith. So if you're interested in that one, give it a watch before next week. We will discuss it next week. As always, maybe my ranting and raving about this film might make you go and watch Tersanjung the Movie. Hopefully you might. If not, I will see you next week.